Hi, everyone, and welcome to Heal Endometriosis Naturally with Wendy K. Laidlaw. Wendy has spent the last 2 years helping women with various stages of endometriosis to heal naturally after putting her condition into remission. After her own healing success from stage 4 endometriosis and adenomyosis, she's inspired to heal others, and her goal is to help some of the 175 million women know that there is another way other than painkillers, drugs, or surgery. This is the place to be for real talk with real people for real results, so you can learn how to heal your endometriosis naturally. Please note that the opinions expressed in this program may represent options, but are not a substitute for proper medical care. Before starting any new healthcare program, we recommend you consult with a health professional.
Hey everyone, it's Wendy K. Laidlaw here from Heal Endometriosis Naturally. And as always, I hope that this podcast finds you well. Well, I have a very, very special guest on with me today. Her name is Maxine from the UK. Welcome, Maxine.
Hi, nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I am so pleased that you have agreed to come on and share your story. I think other women listening to this are always in so much need of hearing success stories, and a lot of women that I work with are quite shy. So thank you for being brave and courageous and coming on and sharing your story. I appreciate your vulnerability that's about to come up.
Well, thank you. Yes, it's a little bit nerve-wracking, but I'm excited to share and just get some more of the message out that you do so well to try and get out to all these women.
Well, thank you so much. Well, maybe just ask you to start by sharing kind of, your earliest memories of when you first started experiencing, the pain and symptoms and stuff of what it meant to be a woman every month.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, I remember my first kind of period starting and that being quite alarming, to be honest, as to what was going on anyway. But the pain added to it, which had never really been kind of that focal point in sex education at school or things like that. And that was probably, I think I was about 12 when that first started. And then each month that came about was just that expectation that you were, going to have a lot of blood loss and lots of pain. And that was just kind of the common ground, really. That was just what was, I thought was normal. And then I think I was about maybe 14, and I remember eating a couple of bowls of shredded wheat, which was my go-to cereal at the time, and I loved it night and day. And I'd obviously had a bit too much that day, and I remember just having this searing pain in my stomach, and my mum thinking that it was appendicitis drove me to accident emergency or the doctors, the hospital, and just this kind of fear of what was going on inside. But all that came back was that it was inflammation. It wasn't appendicitis. There was nothing they could do, and off we were sent back home. And then again, that was just kind of that, well, that I just won't eat shredded wheat again. It must just be the shredded wheat. That's all. And I didn't really understand to the full extent. So it was just knowing from really that day, that first month of having my period was, well, the other girls around me seemed to have period pains, some not quite as bad as me, but I definitely got to know my school, being at boarding school. I got to know my kind of sanatorium ladies, so the ladies in the medical room. Every month they'd keep a bed aside for me. They knew that me and one of the other girls who had bad pain, we would be there kind of monthly, on a month basis. So that just kind of became what I thought was normal, was just having these really bad period pains every month.
Yeah, and it's really interesting hearing you talk like that pain with a period became the norm, and that it was almost socially acceptable that is the norm. And of course, you'll go on to learn that pain with a period isn't normal. But what was it like, even just talking about it now, thinking back to, I mean, from what I understand is your periods became such a central point that, you had to take time off your sports and your running and social and things like that. What was that like when you think back to how it totally dominated your life as you got older?
Yeah, actually, it's quite sad thinking back, when I can feel a bit of emotion, like thinking about all that I kind of missed out on, and particularly those those months, well, that kind of week really, because they were minimum 6 days, 7 days, really, sometimes could go longer, my periods. So I was big into my sport, a big hockey player, athletics was my big thing. So to miss out on taking part in those things in that moment was really impactful, particularly at that time, you know, when it got really bad, about kind of 14, 15. That's when you want to go out to all these social things, and if my period started the day before I was supposed to be kind of going to a party or going to sleep over at someone's house, it would add that kind of fear, and kind of what happens if I leak, or what happens if something goes wrong, and is the pain going to be really bad, which some months were better than others, and now I look back, I know why, because I have more knowledge, and I don't have that now. So I guess looking back, I feel that sadness that I didn't know what I know now, but equally that compassion for how I handled it, and knowing that I did the best I could in the moment, whether it was like, sanitary towel and half a roll of toilet paper I'd use just to make sure I could go and watch some friends play a sports game or whatever it might be, and not be able to take part. But you didn't want to be that girl in swimming class that again was using that, oh, here she comes again with the excuse of not being able to take part because of period. And there was really like a stigma against that. But actually that was really what so many of us were going through, and a lot of friends alongside me too. So in that regard, you didn't feel alone, but it still felt really unfair that why did the boys get to kind of, and they had their own things going on, but they still got to crack on. They didn't have this thing every month that could literally stop them in their tracks.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say you're hearing the emotion. Is this like the first time you've really kind of thought about how it impacted your life?
Yeah, because like you said earlier, just that is what, as a girl being taught sex education, I remember being told you will or you may have painful periods. That is what you're taught. Well, that's what I was taught anyway in education, because the women teaching you have experienced that themselves, is that it is completely normal to go through that. So it's almost like the grieving of the fact that going through that pain. And that's what I'd say to anyone listening that is in their teens or in their 20s, is that you don't have to be in pain. And I wish that I'd known that and had that information before, because it really you feel that kind of powerlessness, don't you, where you just is totally out of your control in that moment, is how it feels. But now I know that I can have control over that, and not be so scared by it. But I think, yeah, just the sadness, that's where the emotion of just, gosh, so if I added up all the days and hours that I missed of school, and even getting work sent to my matron for me to do in my medical center for me to do in bed, because I knew it would be that whole week off. So it's just that just became the norm. So it's sad thinking back of me missing all that time, and just feeling like that's the way it was. I'm a woman now, that's how it is. I just have pain each month, and I just kind of got to suck it up and keep going. I didn't want to be that. You don't want to, at that age too, you don't want to stand out too much, have too much attention on you. So you didn't want to make too much of a fuss. And so when people would joke about, oh yeah, that's her off again, you'd feel that embarrassment, obviously, but just kind of quietly slip away and know that that was just part of it, really, is how it felt at the time.
Yeah, and even as you're talking, I can hear this sort of feeling of shame, and you mentioned isolation, and also just that aloneness, because you don't want to draw attention to yourself. You are just like you've not asked for this. You just suddenly feel blighted by this, and you're so overwhelmed by the thoughts and feelings and the embarrassment of leakage or being your pain taking your breath away, that it just like you just want to push it away.
Yeah, definitely. And that's where, with particularly being at boarding school, obviously some of us, as they all say, women do start to cycle a little bit together, but you'd see some girls that would just crack on, and it always felt there was that sense of isolation. I always knew there was one other girl that was, had really bad pain like me, and would kind of be floored by it. But besides from that, it wasn't really something that at that age I even felt that comfortable talking about. Even talking about it now, it feels more natural, but it's not something I think as women we feel is something that we can openly share, is like, actually, you're in pain too, right? Well, that can't be, surely there's got to be another way, surely we how come they're able to not be in pain and we are? And there is that shame almost of because every woman's going through it, you don't want to then be the one shouting from the rooftops, but I'm in pain, help me, because they're going through a period too, although they might not be in pain. So it's kind of, you're going through all this turmoil and all this kind of, as well as hitting puberty and just not wanting to stand out from the crowd. So you're just kind of silent and just trying to keep going really during the school day.
And it's really interesting, again, hearing you speak, because, it's like, what are you learning through this experience? You're learning as a woman, which is reinforced. Don't make a fuss. Don't draw attention to yourself. Just suck it up and carry on. And it's really interesting hearing you talk in this way, because sometimes we're not even aware of the conscious messages or subconscious or even unconscious messages that we're receiving. Whilst, of course, you're going through puberty, which is, a really kind of awkward time for most women anyway. But then to be, it's almost attacked by this, monthly cycle every month, which comes and you never know if it's going to hit you like a sledgehammer across the face. And then just just sort of think, can I live with the amount of blood that's pouring out of me? How is it possible I'm still alive with the amount of blood that's pouring out of me? So it's really interesting hearing you talk in this way, as in like what you were being set up to accept.
Yeah. Oh, totally. That's totally true. Is that, there's almost that feeling, it's the unfairness, like children have it, teenagers have it, whatever age you are, we're kind of inbuilt with that unjust nature. So for others it would feel like it's unfair that, again, Maxine's off and she's not here and she's not putting in the weight and she's not, in a hockey team, for example, she's not there, so why should she be on the team because she's been off again? And it's that kind of, so of course you don't want people to judge you and project that onto you, so you're there. And I remember having to wear, like the nighttime sanitary towels because it was so heavy. Like I couldn't just wear the normal ones, and I'd be changing those a lot, and it actually felt like you're wearing a nappy. Like it wasn't nice, and you're so self-conscious, and although nobody knows what's going on and what you're wearing, you can't help but just feel that you just want to kind of curl up and hide. You don't want to, particularly going through it at that school age, which so many of us do as soon as we hit puberty, is just that, you don't want that attention on you, and particularly negative attention. You're trying to hide away from that. But exactly, it was that, right, we've just got to crack on, because this can't be like, you've just got to suck up the pain. I used to wish I could just wear a hot water bottle hiding under my school jumper for most of my time. But obviously that was not able to be had. So it would be a lot of painkillers and paracetamol, but again, that wouldn't take away from the pain and the like the blood clots and everything. And it's quite scary, like you say. How can you worry, can I keep going with losing all this blood? It just does not feel, so it's quite scary.
Yeah, and of course, there you are hitting puberty, your body's changing, your emotions, your hormones, you've got to choose career paths and subjects. And so how did that feel kind of emotionally? How did you start to, I heard that you felt shame and guilt and awkwardness, but how did that start to make you feel about yourself emotionally?
Well, not great. You feel that isolation, so you feel kind of alone. And I look back and I had some really down times. I miss my family, and I loved boarding school more than anything. It was the best experience for me, and for me personally, I adored it. But obviously it was isolating, and you had those moments where you just felt alone and didn't want to burden your friends with the same kind of story again. You didn't want to feel like you were just a stuck record player saying again, you've got, period pains. And it almost felt like if you kept using that, people would just not invite you to things because it was just like you were using it as an excuse. So
Yeah.
I think just that I felt really, really down and just really sad and alone at points, particularly during that week of times. And then you'd have to gradually kind of come out of that. It wasn't straight away, Monday to Sunday or whatever it might be. I'd have my period, and then Monday I'm back on my feet and I'm off to go. You're tired after that time, it's like physically and emotionally exhausting. And with all the emotions kind of all over the place anyway, with your hormones and things like that starting, I cried a lot during those times. So so a lot of emotion definitely came up.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting hearing and how there needs to be so much more done, in particularly in schools with young women, and that is part of my mission for the future, is to get into schools to help them understand primarily pain with a period is not normal, and then secondary, what small sort of steps that they can take. Now, you mentioned about being rushed into A&E and with the shredded wheat and things. So what did you discover as a result of the shredded wheat? Because obviously shredded wheat's full of wheat. And from my book, I'm like, no wheat, no wheat, no wheat, no wheat. So it was amazing that you identified that so clearly. But, what was it like identifying that, and how easy was that to kind of swap out wheat?
I mean, honestly, not very easy, because my go-to was brownies and French baguettes, and everything were like my favorite things to eat. And at school, we had amazing chefs that cooked up all sorts. And again, not wanting to be that like different to my peers, but I was so lucky to have a role model that had figured out that wheat was the main thing that was causing that pain for me, was one of the factors anyway. So at 16, kind of 17, I was lucky enough to kind of be educated on that, and I cut wheat out immediately. Someone's handing you something and saying, this might help you reduce your pain and kind of get your social life back on track. At 16, 17, I was like, yeah, take it and run. So it wasn't easy, it wasn't a case of, again, I just thought, right, yes, I know wheat might then be that issue because of what I was educated with, and I cut it out, and that was me plain sailing. I had weak moments where I would, particularly the chocolate brownies, I would eat one of those, and then really within, a couple of hours, my stomach started, showing signs of pain. And although, sometimes I would have that harsh part in me that would kind of be quite critical and, oh, why have you done that? Why have you eaten that? That's not good for you. It equally was almost quite reassuring to go, wow, that is painful immediately after eating that. And it was that almost like self-parenting of, it's not actually, although the child would go, it's so worth it, I'm just going to run and eat the brownie because it tastes so good. The parent in me was like, actually, which at the time I didn't know were those parts, but was saying, oh, look, that's the wheat is causing you that pain. So, and it didn't diminish fully my pain, but it reduced it massively, to the point that, even my periods going from like a week long or even longer down to maybe like 5 days, but still had some heaviness there. But that was a huge change to my kind of trajectory, really, as I moved forward through the final couple of years of school. And then it didn't feel that, I mean, at that time, wheat and gluten-free things were quite hard to come by. There was maybe like one wee shelf on a supermarket compared to now, where there's kind of a whole row of things. But and so you felt a bit different, but equally I was so lucky with the support I had at home, and I wasn't the only one taking wheat out, so that helped. And also at school, the chefs were cooking me kind of individual food that people were actually jealous that I had these like massive plates of delicious handmade like garlic bread and all this stuff. So I kind of flipped it to being, it was so worth it. And as soon as I would slip at any point, I would really feel that pain. So cutting out that wheat from kind of at 16, 17 was an absolute game changer for me, for sure.
Mm. And it's interesting hearing you say that you know, you were aware of parts of you like, oh, stuff it, I'll just have this muffin, and then another part of you going, okay, and there's the pain, just to clarify in case you had any doubt and had forgotten and were in any question mark at all over it, there's the pain. And I think it's quite surprising for a lot of us, isn't it? Because there is that part of you that wants to throw the rattle out the pram and say it's not fair, but what can I not just have one? And then before you know it, your stomach's bloated, distended, and you got belly, you know, there's this bloated belly, and then before you know it, your intestines are screaming at you going, why? Because of course we were never meant to eat as much wheat as we do, let alone the processed wheat and the sprayed wheat and stuff that we have. So what was it like kind of having that knowledge? I mean, hearing obviously you had a reduction in pain, but what did it feel like emotionally, you know, mentally, to kind of make those connections?
Well, I think it helped kind of feel, so like I said earlier, where I felt so powerless, and I knew that this time coming up, I was just going to expect pain and blood clots and, you know, 7 days off in bed. I felt power. I felt like I had some power over, I could change the amount of pain that I had each month by just not eating something. I mean, that's amazing. So that was just felt so empowering to me, and just particularly at that point where you're trying to find independence and you want that too. It felt like I was being really independent and like taking charge and knowing, right, well, I'm not going to eat that because that will give me pain. So it was that education was so important to me, and the knowing why, I think, was really helpful. And that's, like you were saying, wanting to get this message out to schools and, you know, to those who are just starting out puberty, is that, you know, it isn't normal to have a painful period. And I wish that there was somebody who taught me sex ed at school that said, right, that is not normal, and here's a list of things that you can do to help yourself with that, with the big fat one at the top. Number one, don't eat wheat. And that, you know, I would have jumped on that even earlier. And that, so I was so glad and so privileged to have had the education at the age and stage that I did. And I look at friends that, you know, went through years of still, and are still resistant, but are, you know, went through years of painful periods and are still having them. But, you know, ultimately we all have to be ready to take that leap forward too. It can't be forced. So just for me telling fellow, at the time, 16, 17-year-olds, oh, you should check out this wheat-free stuff, you shouldn't have wheat, it'll stop your pain, they weren't too interested. So so for me, it just felt really empowering, and taking that kind of control back into my own hands, really.
Well, I mean, full credit to you, because as you say, there wouldn't have been many 16 and 17-year-olds that were like, I have to leave the wheat-filled chocolate muffin. But then what you did was very, you know, it sounded like what you did was great, is that you swapped out for the wheat-free instead, you know. So let's kind of, so obviously that started to work quite well for you. You started to get a reduction in pain, which is amazing, and full credit to you for being aware of that and making those connections and then taking the actions, because equally you could have been aware of it and decided, actually, I'm not going to do anything with that information. It's not my problem. It's the medical field's problem, and they need to sort things out. So again, give credit where credit's due. So obviously, as time went on, you know, you're, from what I understand you, so maybe you can explain kind of what's happened, because obviously there was a period of time and then things started to kind of shift and change for you again. And then it was only about sort of 2 years ago or so that we started working together. So perhaps you could share kind of what went on in that time frame.
So I've never touched wheat again, which has been, you know, the main thing. But I mean, loads of other great tools have been added into the mix that have definitely kind of catapulted me into amazing direction, like on a rocket. So I mean, obviously going through uni and things like that, I had mixture in periods, but now I know why that is. And there was loads of external factors that were kind of influencing me. And I am like acutely aware of things, and they can affect me. So at university, you know, lots of going out and things like that, I was more aware of, oh, actually my time of the months are a little bit heavier again, and started to kind of, again, with help from home that I was so lucky to have, was kind of make those connections between, right, okay, I've eaten loads of sugar, I've had dairy, I've been out drinking with friends. No wonder my time of the month is not so good. But having that awareness really helped, because again, I felt empowered. I knew, although it was slightly frustrating having the pain, it wasn't for as long as it had been when I was at school, because I didn't have the wheat and I've not touched that again. But I had that awareness of, right, I know why I'm in this pain now, because you've just binged on not healthy foods. You've just had a few weeks of not a healthy lifestyle. And so that again, and it's really keeping in check that part that is quick to kind of jump on the shame bandwagon, which I think so many women will be able to relate with, is that you grow up with so many projections from society and our culture of shame and what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. So it was learning not to shame myself, because that made that pain even worse, and last for longer, and also made you feel depressed and down and sad for that whole time. So I kind of learned through that, the awareness, and then in the last kind of couple of years was learning from you all about the journaling and the meditation, which for me have just been absolutely transformational. I could not recommend it enough. And anyone listening that has resistance to that, it's totally normal. It took me a while to really follow Wendy's protocols to the T, particularly journaling was that kind of push pull. You think, oh, I'll just write it at this time in the day because that'll be easier. But actually, as soon as you wake up, that is the key moment to do that, because you're most vulnerable then, aren't you? You don't even really know what your thoughts are. I find I just start writing about stuff I did not even think I was going to start writing about. And that, for me, doing journaling and meditation and eating healthier, when I get to my times of the month, we're talking no pain, no clots, 2 days. It's not much at all, and it doesn't stop me. I can still go and take part in my hockey. I can still go and meet friends. It doesn't kind of stop me in my tracks and make me feel I want that hot water bottle with me all day. So that, I think, is what has transformed me. But it's been a gradual process. And even in the last maybe 6 months or so, I've, reading books and an amazing support system at home has helped me just realize that actually the emotional side was an area I really needed to work more on. And for the past 4 years or so, I have done work with a therapist too, which has helped massively. But just that awareness of how other people have really can affect you. And I think I'd always just had this everyone's lovely, everyone's great opinion, and gone, I would go bundling in like a Labrador and be, when I look back, quite codependent at times, which I have compassion for, and I know how I got to that point. But just knowing that actually it's people's energy can be really impactful on me. And just now seeing when something comes up and go, right, okay, so if I have eczema or anything that sometimes comes up, I know that that's related to, I'm a teacher, so writing reports is that time where I go, right, my eczema's come up, and that's because I'm feeling a bit stressed. So what do I need to do to help myself? And that journaling and that meditation and just coming back to me has just really, really just transformed me in the last 2 years. It's transformational, and I never would have thought I'd be here. It's funny when you look back and you think how far you've come, and it's just really, for anyone listening, that it is possible. It is amazing how, just with the knowledge, how empowering that can be in itself, and the transformation with just knowing that almost before you've even put a lot of things in place can really transform kind of the pathway that you end up taking.
Well, again, full credit to you. It's amazing all the work that you've done. And does it feel like weird when you're kind of like that part of you that was like, how would all these tools, these protocols help me get to this point? But I mean, obviously, everybody has resistance when they start working with me, every single person.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, the bigger the resistance, the more you need it. And then the more obviously you move through it and you recognize the value in it, because I think we think that how on earth is journaling and meditation going to help my monthly cycle? Well, of course, it increases what I call the AIEIE, increases your awareness. It allows you to get more information, education, get the inspiration, which leads to empowerment. And of course, as women, we have this intuition, we have these instincts, we have this inner wisdom, but how on earth do we tap into it when everything out there is saying, that you put your hands into a stranger in a white coat? So does it feel odd now, kind of like hearing you kind of like, kind of go, wow, yeah, these things have not only assisted me in emotionally, but also expanded my relationship with my body?
Yeah, it does. I mean, like we were saying at the start, you're just told from a young age that that's just normal. That's just how it is. That's just what women have to suffer with. And we just crack on. So for me to think that not only kind of dietary things, but to come back to myself with the journaling, the meditation, that would transform my full life, whether that be like pain-free, more like less cloudy feeling, that kind of like you've got cotton wool in your head, you just can't think, feeling lethargic, all these things changing. It does feel strange to have that, but once you go through it, you'll never go back, because the power of these tools, they work. And when you feel them and you do them, there is no going back, because I know what back would mean, and I don't want that for myself. And like I know you feel, you don't want any woman to have to suffer in pain that doesn't need to. And that's that's so powerful, because no woman should. Painful periods are not normal. Feeling cloudy headed, lethargic, and just wanting to curl up under your duvet all day is not normal. And it's natural, you might be in that state. It is totally natural with everything going on around. But I think once you have the tools to come back to yourself, know how to nurture you and do the self-care, which as women, we're all quick, aren't we? And I know you've said this in podcasts before, of rushing in to help other people and kind of overextending yourself completely. And I know that was me. Like in the past, even school tutors at school would say that in my reports, was how Maxine needs to learn not to give so much to other people. And I was like putting out everybody else's fires really up until kind of maybe 4 years ago. And then only the last 2 years have I really started my own self-care. But we're all quick as women to rush in there and help other people, but it's really taking the time to pause and think, when was the last time I did something for myself? And when was the last time I did take that 20 minutes just for me? I mean, when anyone listening, if they stop and think when the last time was that they just had a quiet moment to themselves, I imagine it would be quite hard, which is really sad when I think about it. And as a teacher, I see all these lovely children in front of me and all these girls that are going to hit puberty soon. And I look to teach them kind of that there is another way, and just that, they don't have to feel the social pressures of helping everyone else. That really, it doesn't make you selfish, which what I used to think. It doesn't. You are not selfish in any way, shape, or form by looking after yourself and doing self-care. And that's what I've really come to feel very confident and empowered with the journaling and the meditation. And really, without those, I don't know how I would get through a day. Like with meditation in particular, the journaling without fail would do it in the morning, no doubt. And there's some days that you're going through the day and you're like, oh, I'm not sure about a meditation today, or I just don't have time. And I know my mum and I, we both will say, you haven't had a meditation today, or, go and have your meditation, because you can tune in, you can feel your different energy. You're almost feeling that, not to the point of burnt out, because, the tools that we have now help us never to reach that point again. But just that feeling of you're not quite as present as you could be. And that's when things can negatively affect you and almost you become more reactive. So just that meditation being that moment to just switch off and be totally relaxed within myself. And that's where, for women, listening, it is just so important to think to that last moment that you gave yourself self-care, because if it's hard to think of, you're not giving yourself enough time.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I think, again, culturally, we're conditioned that we're selfish to think of ourselves. But of course, everybody's heard the phrase, you can't give from an empty cup. But I refer to it now as a bathtub. We need to have a bathtub filled of energy. We can't wait till the bathtub's empty and everything's drained away before we're crawling along the floor going, I don't even know how I'm going to even get dinner done, because I can't even think about what to do, or I don't even know how I'm going to make that call. I've got nothing left. It's literally learning, forget the cup. We need a bathtub of energy. And then what happens is we overflow that. We've got so much to give because our bathtub is full. And yes, obviously there might be little windows of tolerance in which, depletes and stuff. But if we're thinking bathtubs of energy, then we really can give back to the world and give back to other women, give back to other people from a place of abundance within ourselves. But you're right. I think self-care is so poorly understood or misunderstood. And again, it's down to information education, isn't it? It's increasing awareness of like, have I gone all day and just not stopped, not eaten, not taking any time to myself? It's like, you can't use your mobile phone when the battery's dead. It's the same with our own selves. So it's wonderful that you've learned that on the journey. It's wonderful that you've really been aware of that. And how have these tools in particular helped you emotionally to deal with your day-to-day? Because obviously you're a primary school teacher, you're dealing with 26 little beautiful bundles of intense energy and all the dramas, trials, tribulations, everything that goes on with kids and parents and school. And how have those tools helped support you emotionally?
Yeah, I think they've helped. I mean, they've just helped me come back to me. And, I'm not sitting here saying I've got it all sorted at all. And there are days that it does feel overwhelming. But I equally now know what I can do to help myself when it does get to that point. So I think it's helped me emotionally by allowing me that headspace to just get things out on paper. So particularly in the morning, there's all these random things that come up that you don't even know that you are there, about 10 years ago things and all that random stuff to get out, which then means that I have this I'm coming to work or I'm going to wherever I'm going with this clarity and not with any kind of niggles in the background. And particularly, the children are so full of energy and so full of love and this keenness for life. And I guess I see them and I see their bundles of energy, and I want to have that too. And I feel I do have that when I'm with them, but I'm aware now of not overgiving my energy. And that's what the tools have taught me, is really kind of coming back in the moment rather than later on looking back and going, oh, I gave too much. It's kind of feeling when you have maybe overexerted yourself and putting in the strategies, feeling comfortable and able to put in different strategies to protect you and to protect those. Because I work with loads of lovely people, but there are toxic people, and there's toxic people around all of us. And I've really noticed, and particularly the journaling and meditation have helped me become more aware of this, was just how much they were affecting me. And whilst my period pains were gone and loads of other aspects and bloated stomach were gone, I had really bad eczema and candida and things coming up. And I now know that is and was down to the stress of my environment that was around me. And, I do genuinely feed off and have total love for the children, but there were adults that were very, very toxic to me. And I learned through that empowerment of writing down your thoughts I almost practice what I would say in my journal to these people, to kind of put in my boundaries. And I do have a great support system at home that I could bounce that off to. But if you are someone listening and you don't, your journal is that place, or standing in front of the mirror and practicing, telling these people, I'd rather not do that, or whatever it might be, you're putting in those boundaries. So through working with you was learning that it was okay to do that, because I think, again, we we don't know that it's okay. We feel like we just have to kind of be quiet and go on, or just say yes to everything. I felt like that's what I did at the start of my career anyway, was just like, yeah, I'll do that, I'll do that, I'll do that. And before I knew it, I had zero time. I was working 12, 13-hour days and just exhausted and not enjoying something that I knew deep down I loved and is what kept me going. So I think, yeah, working with you has just taught me that it's okay to have your own voice. It's okay to say no to things. People are equally entitled to have their own opinions and their own feelings when you say no, but that's okay. They can have those. It's like if someone says no to you, you're entitled to how you feel. But equally, if they're reacting in a certain way, you are entitled to say, that's upsetting me, please, would you stop that? Or whatever it might be. So the tools have just helped me feel, which we all hope that we can one day, is feel almost in control of my emotions. Or if they come up, I'm not afraid of them. It's that kind of acceptance, maybe not control, but that acceptance of my emotions. So if a day has been really busy, and I come back and I do my meditation, and then sometimes I might feel a bit emotional and I'll cry walking down the stairs, and then I'll be happy on the way back up, because I've just accepted that, and I've noticed, right, that's probably because we maybe overextended, or it's just been quite busy today, so I know what I have to do. Usually for me, it's getting a furry blanket, for that little part in me. Hot chocolate too is like that big nurture, and getting the pen out and journaling. But it's just having that acceptance now with working with you, and those tools of my emotions in the moment too. Yeah. So that I can accept them and know that that's normal and it's natural to go through a wave of emotions, and particularly anger and things which are so viewed so negatively, are so natural. And that's how, you're feeling anger for a reason. And again, and I'm still learning. I still have moments where I can feel that kind of, oh, we can't get angry at that, but I'm aware of it. And like I say, I'm not sitting here like I know or have it all sorted, but I just feel that acceptance now for my emotions, and real awareness of what is affecting my body and my mind, which was a lot of the time for me personally, other people and their projections onto me. I took in and on, and that was affecting me physically and emotionally before.
That's amazing. And it sounds like you've really learned how to put good boundaries in. The very fact that you can, have that fluidity of acceptance, awareness and acceptance at the same time is incredible. And how does it feel that to recognize, and this was a tough thing for me, really tough. And I know it's tough for a lot of women with endometriosis, is what does it feel like to know that there are emotional external stresses and factors and people and past and things like that affect you physically?
Oh, I think the word of overwhelm is so key there, because, and even, I know now that I have to put a lot of tools in place, even more like really steely tools, continue those, because I know sometimes it still does feel overwhelming, but I know that I have those strategies to support me. I think it's just knowing that, again, when working with you, knowing that that is normal and knowing that that's okay helps so much. But it was difficult at first, because you're transitioning into going from not hearing any of your thoughts, or just kind of batting them out your head or shoving them down, that to then start listening. It was emotional. It was, I went through a lot of emotion.
Yeah, but now that you have the knowledge, what's it like? I mean, I know so many people go, oh, well, I'll look at the produce, I'll look at the products, look at the property, but the past and people, yeah, whatever. Because I know I was like that. And this is why a lot of my podcasts are on emotions and feelings and past and things, because it's easy for people to some degree to swap out the wheat, with yourself. You did well. It's easy to kind of look at the dairy and the soy, and there's loads of information out there on the internet. And yes, we can look at supplements and I'm sure I became a supplement addict as well. And like, I've been taking these supplements, I'll be fine. And then, yeah, you kind of get the SLSs and the parabens and products. And yeah, you get the property. So we can kind of all left brain logically get all that. But when it comes to past and people, well, for me, it was a different ball game. Yes, I started journaling, and yes, I started meditation, kind of got that a little bit. I was a bit sniffy about that, like, oh, I'm not really sure if meditation's for me. But of course, my idea of meditation for everyone is you go and lie on your bed, you put your earphones in, your eye mask on, and if you fall asleep, you go for it. That's my idea of meditation.
Yeah.
But what did it feel like for you to kind of like, wow, these people and these places in the past are like showing up in my body? Because I think a lot of people really, I know I did, really struggled with what might be happening subconsciously, and then it shows up physically in the body.
Yeah, that's true. It was a shock to begin with when you start really seeing the impact that some people can have on you, and a shock, but equally kind of, wow, okay, no wonder I was so exhausted before. No wonder I felt like that, because of all the people I'm interacting with. So I think for me, it just feels amazing to have the awareness of how people can affect. And I've had to put in, and it's difficult sometimes, but I've had to put in some really firm boundaries for myself. Like, I know, for example, and I know lots of women with endo feel the same, things like Facebook has always been a real thing for me, because actually I know I'm not physically engaging with somebody, but even through a screen, I found that quite impactful and exhausting and triggering sometimes. So for me, it was, delete that off my phone. And I don't do that on my phone. And I come onto the laptop if I need to for a short period of time, and I do that. So it's not depriving yourself of something. And I think that's what I've learned through working with you too, is it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. So particularly at work, if there's a toxic person that I know does drain my energy or can be quite triggering, I don't have to ignore them and hide away from them 24/7. I can just know, right, I can maybe manage 10 minutes, or I have that internal parent chat with myself, is that we can handle this, we've got this, you step into that and you go. And as soon as you almost have the awareness of what they are like, or certain people or things like the Facebook or Instagram or even just your phone in general, once you have the awareness of the impact that has on you, it's feeling your power and how you can actually change that for the positive for you. Because like you say, supplements, cutting out the wheat was the easy part. And I hope you'll hear that from this, is that, that was the easy part for me, but it's taken me, like, that's almost 10 years later, have I done the emotional side. And the transformation is, I can't almost put it into words how much I have grown in the last 2 years. It's just, unbelievable and really exciting because of what's to come. But I just, I feel like I'm really on the start of that growth even more so. But I think just knowing that, firstly, it's okay to feel people are toxic, because again, that was a big shift for me, is kind of, you feel like, oh, I'm not being nice by saying that they're toxic, or I don't want to say anything mean about anybody. You're not. It's okay. This is how you and your body feels around that person. So what can you do to put those protective measures in place? And again, know that that's okay. And if they're nice people deep down, they'll respect your boundaries and they'll respect what you have to say, and actually maybe even take a page out of your book and go, right, wow, I love the way you did that. This is awesome that you're giving yourself more time, or whatever it might be. But I think I just realized how many different factors were around me in my day-to-day running of life that were negatively affecting me. So it was difficult at first to see the impact of how many people and things were affecting, like, my emotions and my physical health too. But now I feel, and for, all the women out there, that when you start realizing the toxicity, it can be upsetting, and you go through almost like a grieving process. But then you come out there and, we always move through that emotion. And I think that's what I want everyone to remember, is you move through that, and it can feel like intense, and you're mourning a lot, but then you come back through and you're just so much more empowered by putting in those boundaries and feeling great.
Yeah, and I think you're just hearing you talk. I think it's a reminder of how difficult it is for many parts of us to see people for how they are, not for how we want them to be, because we're the type of women that we are. We're EHISPs, exquisitely highly intuitive, sensitive people. Again, sometimes people misinterpret that for weakness and really do try and push boundaries. So again, it's harder for our types of personalities because we don't like to put a boundary in, but then it's essential for health to put a boundary in. But to see people as they are, not as we want them to be, can be really challenging, especially if their partners or their family, close family, or their work colleague or thing. And suddenly you see a thin slice of someone and you're like, yeah, my body's feeling quite tense. So when you start to wake up and be aware, that can be a challenge. But it sounds like, you've done a marvelous job. And as you acknowledge, it's an everyday type of thing. It's not like, okay, destination, arrived here, got it all sorted. Life would come along and smack you across the back of the head with a big fat bat, because that's what life does. It's always remaining in that awake and aware state so that we can keep tuning in. And if the message I'm hearing you say, and is a reiteration of what I say, is that don't underestimate the impact that your emotional health can have. And we're not talking necessarily mental health here, we're talking your emotional health, because all emotions are messengers.
Yeah.
So if you are triggered by somebody, what is that emotion telling you? And then therefore what power can you take? How can you empower yourself to protect yourself? Because again, what we're all learning on this journey is we're increasing our awareness more and more and more, which is great. Awareness is one thing, but it ain't enough on its own. No. It's like Endometriosis Awareness Month is amazing, but we also need information, education, inspiration, which leads to empowerment.
Yeah.
It's that wider thing. So having heard, it's amazing, what you've accomplished in the time that you have it. When now, obviously you've spent time recanting this, what's it felt like looking back a little bit to where you are now?
I think it's amazing to see what's possible, and just that I feel proud of myself, because I could have easily gone down the pathway that other peers went down, and just that stubborn way that you can be at that age. But that was not, I wanted something different. So I feel so happy and pride and kind of where I've got to, and really empowered. I think it's just knowing that you do have all the answers are within you. And I know you say that, they're all within you. You have them all there. And that is something special, because you're told for so many years certain things and certain projections. So to know that I have the answers within me, and not feel that fear of that monthly cycle coming round is just huge. So I think when I look back at what I've learned and in that period of time, it's amazing, and it's really gonna set me up for the rest of my life. Particularly what you teach me is that, what I really use every day is that slow is fast, because I know how reactive I used to be, and I know that I need to slow down. And that's where my journaling and my meditation helped me slow down with responses. And also, I now feel like I can come into my body even more. I started 2 years ago, but now it's taken me to a different level with the new emotional tools. Is just that knowing, again, if someone makes my stomach lurch or makes me feel that, then I'm aware of that in the moment, and I don't kind of dismiss that as, oh, it's something I've eaten or it's something that's happened. It's a kind of, well, I feel that because of that person, or I notice in the moment how I feel after somebody, or after being on like I say, Facebook or anything online. I see how I feel with that. So just feels amazing to see what's possible. And I know, as I said, this is really the beginning of this new part of my journey, and it's exciting. But to be pain-free and just know that you do not have to suffer in pain is amazing now. So absolutely amazing. And I have you to thank for that.
Well, thank you. And I think as well, it's lovely that you're also, with your own children in the classroom, you've been teaching them mindfulness and meditation, and there are countless tens of thousands of studies validating the effectiveness of even just that. So it's awesome that you're sharing your experience. And of course, you've been, part-time, and in your evenings, you've been training as an EndoBoss coach as well, which is awesome. And And what would you say to any woman who's listening to this, whatever age? I mean, if you don't mind me sharing your age, are you comfortable with
No,
me
that's
sharing?
absolutely fine. Yeah.
I mean, you are only 28, and I think it's amazing that, you know, you've learned these tools. And I wish I could have chopped off both arms to have had this information at that age, because you're now not beholden to the condition. You're not crippled by it, especially when your family line, your history, your ancestral line was riddled with it. Now you know you have this power, information, knowledge, that you understand what you can do, the influence that you can have over your body.
Oh, totally. And I think that it's really sad hearing, you know, young girls who are kind of 17, 18 going for surgery and going for that. And I think, you know, whatever age you are, it's awful hearing the stories and the emails that, you know, we get in are really heartbreaking to read, and just wanting, so the message would be that you do not have to suffer, you do not have to be in pain. And you know, if you are working on the dietary side and you are doing that, that's amazing, and keep going, it's awesome. But that there is this bigger chunk of stuff that is the focal point that will help you just transform. But it's equally kind of just having that vision for what you wish for yourself, what you want for yourself. You know, hope can be taken away, but just that, having that purpose of, yeah, I know I can do this, I've got this. And that there's an amazing support team out there, like Wendy and the team are amazing and are there to support you if you need that. And just that there are countless women that have now worked with Wendy's, hundreds, thousands of women that will testify to the fact that, you know, this whole approach, this holistic approach works. Like, that's what you need. It isn't just a one pronged thing, it is all of the different things that are there to affect you. But it doesn't, it's, and equally it's irrelevant of age. You know, this is for women, girls, whatever age you are. You know, girls are starting puberty earlier now. You know, we know for I know some girls in my school that are 8, you know, starting. So you kind of think, if that is an 8-year-old girl starting with pain, that's not normal. We want to educate that. So just, you know, educate yourself, educate others, but know that it's this whole holistic approach, and that it's possible. You do not have to suffer in pain is the main message, no matter your age.
Yeah, and it's an important message, and I think it kind of reiterates, you know, before we finish up here, about we are all guilty of wanting that, you know, that quick fix. You're like, press a button and want Amazon delivered that same day. Where, in fact, I was using this the other day. This it's like an oak tree seed saying to a big oak tree, I want to be an oak tree now. And the oak tree going, it's kind of taken me quite a bit of time to get here, seeds. You're really going to have to kind of slow this up. And the seed going, no, I want to be an oak tree now, and having a big tantrum. And the oak tree going, no, it took me about 150 years to get here. And I'm not saying it takes 150 years to find out the root causes and eliminate the condition, but it does take time. And there are these many layers of, like, coming down through the layers of the onion. And I think that so many of us underestimate the emotional component, which is why I've been doing the Ultimate Emotional Health Summit. That's why I'm doing Embracing Emotions programs, because if I can get women to fully comprehend and understand the emotional component, and we're not saying it's in your head, as in you're crazy, because it's not that at all. Nobody aspires to grow up and be in pain. That is not an aspiration for any person. No. But what I'm advocating here is that, you know, when you can understand the complexity of the brain body and how all these things can ripple out and have profound impact, probably subconsciously. Yeah. So, for example, if you've had a flare up with your endometriosis and it was going well and you've had a flare up, there's a reason for it. It isn't just some abstract thing that's happened, like a spaceship that's just come down and kind of, you know, covered you with some dust and has made it happen. There is a reason. There's a root cause. It's called cause and effect. You know, Einstein used to talk about, you know, there's a reason. And of course, we just have to get the magnifying glass out and do it. And this is why I do what I do. So I thank you for supporting me in that. Equally, there is a 21-day challenge about to start. And that's where I teach you for 21 days what self-care is all about. And I know you've done the challenge. What would you say to anyone, you know, I help with reduction of anxiety and depression and overwhelm. What would you say to anyone considering taking the challenge?
I think it's a great way to start off your journey, with kind of looking into the emotions in a safe, environment. You know, it's people in the same boat as you, people that understand what you're going through, women who just get you, you know, and with the EndoBoss team that have all been through their own journeys too, and again are still going through their journeys, but they've started the hard part a while ago of their emotions. So just it's that great you know, nice easy way to get your foot, the tip of your toes in the water of the emotions. So yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think if you're skeptical and cynical about the emotional component of endometriosis, then you just trust the process and lean in and enjoy it. But I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. And I wanted to save the very best to last, because for those of you who don't know Maxine, Maxine is my beautiful daughter. And I'm so proud of her in so many ways, and I won't cry, but I want to publicly say how proud I am of you for being so open and so generous in sharing at points in your life where you could have, yes, been a rebellious teenager and said, stuff you, mum, but you know, you were open and you know, willing to try these suggestions, because I think you saw how bad it got for me and things as well.
Yes.
So that really, I think, consciously and subconsciously thought, heck, if I don't do something now, mum had endometriosis, granny had endometriosis, and you were absolutely headed that way. So thank you so much for being you. And I love that you are now involved and supportive, because you've had your own trials and tribulations. You were fortunate not to have surgery, which is amazing. And you were close to the cliff edge of having to go for surgery, and close to the cliff edge of going on all sorts of drugs and things. And by you being open to these suggestions and hopefully seeing like how dire it got for me, you know, I want to commend you for being who you are and being on this journey with me and helping to share this message and being part of my EndoBoss team as well with some other amazing members. So,
well, thank you to, you know, on behalf of all the women that you've already changed their lives, because, and I'm going to get emotional now, but just, you know, anyone listening that has, you never, not only do you never want to be in pain yourself, you don't aspire to do that, but, you know, growing up and seeing your mum in so much pain is heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. And so, of course, any top tips and tools that I, you know, and I witnessed literally watching them happening in front of my eyes, it was phenomenal. So to see the changes and mum being able to, you know, come out of being bedridden with these tools that she'd researched, and that's something that I have to say is, before I know finishing up, is just that, you know, my mum Wendy has done all the research from her bed for you, because there was no one else out there that had done this. It saves you those hours and days and months and years of just tearing your hair out because there's nothing there that gives you the answers. And that's why, you know, first and second edition of the book, they're like, that's the handbook that tells you almost everything you need to know. But we all as women have had cultural things projected on us, so it's okay, and it is amazing, equally okay and amazing, to reach out for help and to know that, you know, we are here to inspire and support. And that's what Wendy has created, is that EndoBoss family of women that totally get each other. But really, it's, none of us want to be in pain. None of us want to see family members in pain. Anyone listening that has got a daughter, you know, I don't have a daughter, but I do wish one day that I have many, is that I don't want any of them growing up in pain. So you almost owe it to yourself to take the leap forward and to go into the 21-day challenge and to take those leaps for yourself, so that you can show your daughter or your nieces or your cousins or friends what is possible and that they don't have to suffer. Wendy has put it all together for you. So, you know, a big thank you to you, because who knows where I would have been if it wasn't for you. I mean, definitely endometriosis was knocking loudly at the door. So
Well, I think a
symptoms
doctor
really.
had even sort of said that to you, that you
Yeah,
thought that you had that, and
yeah,
that's when I think it was a bit of a wake up call for you, wasn't it? Kind of like,
yeah,
okay, I see what's up ahead on the pathway, and with me being bedridden for so many years, it was chronic. So, as I say, full credit to you. You could have easily rebelled against your mum. You could easily have said, "Stuff you, mum! I'm not doing it just because that's what kids do." But equally, I think you recognize yourself, that the early changes you made were so impactful. And then you knew, even with things like your eczema and candida, again, you can see how you're already putting these things into remission already just by paying attention to the stress, paying attention to the emotions, paying attention to people. And it still blows a part of me away even now. I'm going like, just because our culture and our conditioning doesn't advocate those things, it doesn't talk about these things, but then I mean, if you think, as I say, the vagus nerve goes right down the back of the spine, back of the head, down the spine, and branches out into the rest of the body. Why wouldn't it affect it? I think there was a lovely book you'd suggested called, what's it called, about the jungle one?
Oh, the playground.
The playground is a jungle.
It's like a jungle,
The
yes.
playground is like a jungle. And we live in a concrete jungle now, and we all know, I mean, just, I'm not going to go into that, but we know that there's people out there that are actively hostile and aggressive. Now, I remember after 3 weeks, if only 3 years of being in bed and coming out and sort of being more mobile, after I put the conditions in remission, and seeing all these signs everywhere with people saying, we will not accept aggression, we will not accept hostility. And I'm like, wow, what's happened? Well, what's happened is social media with this encouraging narcissism and individuality to a degree. So I understand why a lot of women struggle with self-care, because they think they're being selfish and stuff. But actually, that's not selfish. What you need to do is keep filling yourself up so that you can really start to understand what's happening in your body and mind. So I want to thank you so much for coming on. I know that this was a very brave and courageous thing. And I think a lot of people that, that you're now working with, they don't really know your story. And I felt your story was really important, especially for the younger generations, because as you said, we know of a girl, a friend of a friend who's 18 years old and went and had major surgery. Now we know, surgery doesn't get to the root cause. There's obviously all these side effects, these, adhesions and perforations, and then there's talk of chemical menopause and stuff. These things are brutal, not only in the physical, but the emotional. So I thank you for coming on and sharing your story and being so brave and courageous and being my beautiful daughter, who I'm so proud of anyway.
Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So for those who are listening, the 21-day challenge is due to start soon. If you're listening to this podcast retrospectively and the challenge is finished, you can register on the waitlist and we'll let you know as soon as it comes on. Equally, by now, there's lots of free resources, my top tips and my free paperback book, Heal Endometriosis Naturally. Well, it's actually how I ended my endometriosis naturally, without painkillers, drugs, and surgery. Both books went to /1 on Amazon bestseller in America and UK. So get it, read it. There's also resources now available at healendometriosisnaturally.com/resources. Again, I've been trying to build up things so that you can get the book, read it, and then see my top resources that can help you jumpstart your journey as well. So thank you so much, Maxine. I really appreciate you. I love you loads, and to your health.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to Heal Endometriosis Naturally with Wendy K. Laidlaw. And I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and rate us. If you're interested in learning more, you can download your top 5 jumpstart tips at healendometriosisnaturally.com and jump on the VIP email list. Remember to keep you number one, for the world needs a healthy you.